Welcome to the Mojo Market Report. Here's your hosts, Dave Sturchio and Chris Gueci.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Mojo Market Report right here on a Wednesday. It is hump day here midweek. We are rolling right towards week number 15. It is Dave Sturchio. It is Chris Gueci, of course. And, of course, we're behind our own glass today. A5 not in the building. He'll be back ASAP. But we hope everybody's doing well out there. We hope you're making your smart investments. I know I did a little wheeling and dealing yesterday, making sure that I'm in on certain players going towards the playoffs. I know yesterday we talked a lot about the quarterbacks, the rookie quarterback class. And then we decided, you know what, it's a great idea. If this is your first time watching the show, welcome. You know, that's the first. I'm Dave Sturchio, and that's Chris Gueci. In any event, if you're just starting to make your first investments and you just saw the Ocho Cinco promo on Instagram, you're like, what is this? Let me get involved. You got to know who to get involved in, right? I mean, there are the superstars of the league. Everybody knows, like, the safe bets right now are your Patrick Mahomes of the world, the Justin Herberts, the Josh Allens, all the upper echelon of guys. And those guys, you can really, really benefit from using their multipliers and everything like that to see their movement on the market. Now, the draft class that came in this year was pretty nice. The quarterbacks have all gotten an opportunity, right? I mean, most of them.
I would say that the quarterback class was not so nice, but what we're about to talk about, the receivers,
dude, the receiver class, my God, we're gonna catch you up on all the receivers in this rookie class, and tomorrow we'll touch on the running backs. But this receiver class is incredible, and we got to start with one of the guys that have really proven themselves right out of the gate. And that's Garrett Wilson. Would you invest in a Garrett Wilson? Now, I also preface this by saying this, Chris. My thing is this. I have criteria when I'm making an investment for the Mojo market. And it's the same thing. It's actually a lot different than fantasy, right? Because in this regard, maybe not in the regards of dynasty, because you do want to invest in their future and what you think they're going to do. But in this regard, for this exercise, I decided to say, do I have extra opportunity this year? Playoffs. Do I have opportunity next year? Staying power. Are they going to be wide receiver one next year? That's to be determined. But starting with Garrett Wilson, if you look at his 1 year, so basically since he's been drafted, he has shot up the ranks, right? There is multipliers available on this guy. There's a 3-time and a 2-time if you wanted to go short. Garrett Wilson has over 100 targets for the year. He's got 63 catches, 868 yards, 4 touchdowns. Dude's averaging 13.8 yards a catch. He is doing good things in New York. And here's my thing. It was Zach Wilson. It was Joe Flacco. It was Flacco. It was Zach Wilson. Now it's Mike White. Not a lot of consistency over there at quarterback, but he's still making plays.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at 1406 in future value, right?
It's a lot.
I think Zach Wilson. Garrett Wilson is a wide receiver one right now, if you're looking at it.
He definitely is.
3 top 10 finishes in fantasy, depending on the format, because one was 11, but in my league, it was 10, right? So he finished top 10 in fantasy 3 times in the last 5 weeks. And this is with Mike White, Zach Wilson at the helm. This is not a blue chip thrower of the football. It's guys that we expect to be possibly not having a job as a starter next year.
Potentially.
You know who's going to have a job as a starter next year? Garrett Wilson. And look, with the 4 touchdowns, he has 2 touchdowns in 2 separate games this year. So he's not finding pay dirt as often as you'd like, but the big playability is there. Some of the touchdowns that he scored were in huge moments. One to win the game against Cleveland. There's been a few of these moments where you see what he's able to do with the football, and you got to say, look, this is a clear wide receiver one of the future for me. I don't even think it's a debate. I think there's something to be said about other guys in this class, which we're going to get to, that may be a bigger buy than him. But if I'm looking at it right now, and I'm looking at some of the other guys that are in the upper echelon of the receivers, right, and bank value right now through 2 seasons, you have Justin Jefferson is at 739. He's got 1944 in future value. I'm not saying that Garrett Wilson is Justin Jefferson.
Is Garrett Wilson projected to be better than Justin Jefferson?
No. He's not projected to be better. But if you're looking at the trajectory, I think that there's a lot more room for growth here, because look what we're talking about, 4 touchdowns. Right. He's going to have more touchdowns. There's room for positive regression there.
Right.
You would imagine, right? Once he gets a quarterback, if that happens, I think the Jets are in a spot this year where they're going to be able to go after a veteran quarterback. I truly do. Their roster is set up nice. I think Jimmy G is a perfect fit. I said it. I think, now I know we're not talking quarterbacks, but Dennis Benigno brought up an interesting point yesterday on New York Sports Talk Radio, and it's that Zach Wilson's not even dressing anymore, right? it wasn't
this week he might.
There has to be more to this story.
Something's going on
than we had
right.
initially.
What happened in that trip to Utah?
Not only what happened in the trip to Utah, what happened in the locker room, what happened in behind closed doors with Coach Saleh and Zach Wilson.
There has
to be something more to it than because he's not dressing.
Because it's
Joe Flacco was the one that
right.
won.
So if it was performance based and only performance based, then Zach Wilson rides the pine for a little bit. And he's on the bench. He's in street clothes. You know what I mean? So that's a big deal. But let's move on here. We got Chris Olave coming in. He's one of the favorites here on the Mojo Market. We've talked about this guy at length over the course of the first 14 weeks of the season. Now entering week 15, Chris Olave, 98 targets, 60 catches, 887 yards, 3 touchdowns. The breakaway speed this guy could possess, just the overall intangibles as a wide receiver, this is a very smart investment. My only problem is, there's not going to be any opportunity in the playoffs unless there's a miracle in New Orleans where we live in a world where Tampa just falls off the face of the earth. New Orleans decides to just win out or something. I don't see it happening. But also question marks around the quarterback position. Yeah. He's been dealing with Jameson Winston. He's been dealing with Andy Dalton. So, like, the Saints, to me, are 100% in on a quarterback next year's draft. The problem is they don't have any picks. So it's like, what do you do here? What's the solve? But the real question is, Chris Olave, you in?
Yeah, I'm in. I mean, everything that I just said about Garrett Wilson, you could say almost the exact same thing about Chris Olave. I think there's a little bit less of that big play threat, but not much less. And he's pretty much the entire New Orleans Saints offense at this point in the season.
Yeah, because can't guard Mike, wound up being guarded by everybody and just stays off the field.
Well, he just doesn't even play.
Yeah, right. Michael Thomas is done.
You know, the Taysom Hill project, it was nice while it lasted, but I think that's
been figured out very...
With no Sean Payton, we're starting to see that the type of player that Taysom
Coaching
Hill actually is. Yeah, I don't know about the quarterback spot. They should be in on a quarterback this offseason, but there's no guarantees. There's not many available in terms of the Carson Wentz. We figured out that he's not a viable starter. The Matt Ryans of the world are gone. It's really Jimmy G, potentially Derek Carr, potentially. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, because think about the guys that are going to be drafting quarterbacks early. That means they're replacing who they have now. So, yeah, Derek Carr might be on the outs.
You might see a Tannehill trade, but do you really see Tannehill making a huge difference over him?
To be honest, and this is no disrespect to Tannehill because I know he's put up some numbers, Tannehill and Dalton are the same quarterback to me. They are the same guy. I'm sorry. Nobody jumps off the charts out of the two of them. You know, I'm not sitting there like, oh, it's Ryan Tannehill. Like, I'm not excited at all.
I would say that Tannehill brings a little more intangibles to the situation, personally. Tannehill's proven that he could take his team into the playoffs. Andy Dalton has proven that he can't.
He's been there. Hasn't won anything, but he's been there a couple times. The Bengals. They just haven't won.
Was it like 18 years ago?
Yeah, I mean,
I remember when Andy Dalton used to go to the playoffs.
And those were the days. Marvin Lewis on the sideline somehow has a job still. So Chris Olave.
Sean Payton was like young and spry.
He was a coordinator on Cowboys underneath Parcells. Anyway, moving on. Drake London. Now, this one's interesting because clearly there's no playoffs in sight for the Falcons. Actually, damn, I can't rule out anybody in the NFC South.
All right, but we can establish that. They're not making the playoffs.
81 targets, 47 catches, 533 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, again, he started the year with Marcus Mariota. I'm very interested to see how he does with Desmond Ridder. Right now, he's on the low. He's kind of dipping off the face. And I'm thinking, if I'm going to invest in Drake London, I'm glad that I didn't do it yet because I think the camaraderie and the connection between him and Ridder could be really, really special. So now I'm very, very in on him.
Yeah, I mean,
he is him.
I'm not so sure that I'm in on him yet. I do agree with you that the Desmond Ridder thing adds a little more intrigue to the situation. We all know that Mariota isn't going to light it up throwing the football. So you expect his receivers are probably not going to put up huge numbers. Now we're talking about rookie numbers here, right? So Drake London's numbers are just fine if we're looking at other rookies across the history of the league. When you have guys in the last couple seasons that are really setting the expectations and setting the bar really high as far as rookie pass catchers go, you can't expect every guy that has talent to just come in, step into their situation, and light it up, right? But I will say this. He's only had one top 10 finish, and that was week 2, right? He hasn't had any other finishes inside the top 20 except for last week. So there is a little bit of positivity. There is no Kyle Pitts to take any of the coverage away, even though he didn't really live up to anything. But I do think that with Ritter stepping in post-bye week, they had a couple weeks together. Just like you saw another guy we'll get to later, when Kenny Pickett took the helm in Pittsburgh, you saw a little bit of a spike in a George Pickens.
You did.
I don't know if it's because they're working together in rookie camp or whatever, but clearly there's going to be some type of history or connection with these two because they're the same class. So I expect Drake London to do better now that Desmond Ridder is the passer, and I also expect more chances to be taken by the offense. Now that they're kind of past the point.
Gloves are off.
The gloves are off. Not that they're out of the
Training
playoffs.
wheels are off.
Not
All
that
that
they're out of
stuff
the
is
playoffs.
off.
But if you're gonna have to take some chances here and see what you got in this kid. And we all know Drake London's got the talent. That's not a debate. I think it'll come together, but it's going to take a little bit longer than the other
Now, out
guys.
of the first three guys we just talked about, Wilson, Olave, and London, out of those three, Drake London does have the lesser of the targets. But the rest of the guys that we're about to talk about, they're not even close to Drake London, Olave, and Wilson as far as targets are concerned. So, like, the trust is there. That was Mariota's having the trust. That was Dalton and Winston having trust. That was Zach Wilson and Mike White having trust.
When it's all said and done, I'm going to look right now. All said and done, I mean, 47 catches through 3 quarters of the season, 4 touchdowns. It's not a terrible rookie year.
No,
it's not. It's just not what we've come used to with these blue chip prospects.
On like show 2 of the Mojo Market Report, there was a guy that you whispered at the very end of the show, Jameson Williams. Right? It was time. Get in on him now. He's not gonna. We don't know when he's gonna play, but get on him now. Jameson Williams is on the field for a believe it or not gonna. A playoff potential led team in the Detroit Lions. Again, wow. But overall, one of the more higher octane offenses in the league. Jameson Williams has 3 targets. 3. I got a text last week during the Cowboy game, so he knew I wasn't going to respond. Mm-hmm. But the text was, "Welcome to the party, Jameson Williams."
Well, at that time, the Cowboys were up 7-0.
So you know it's the same
I was
space?
like, "Oh, they're gonna beat the piss out of the Texans." So I was like, "All right, Dave can handle it."
I'm gonna text him
Dave
right
can
now.
handle it. I wasn't like, "Welcome to the
saw the
party,
text and I was like,
Damian Pierce," or something, you know?
Exactly. But Jameson Williams has 3 targets. He's brand new to the show. But one of those targets was a catch, and one of those catches was a touchdown. You know what I mean? So his only catch is a touchdown. I don't know. How do you feel going forward about this guy? Because clearly he's cheaper than the aforementioned guys we just talked about. He's on an offense with a quarterback in Jared Goff, who we think collectively at this point, week 15, that he's played himself into a job next year, at least to compete with whoever they draft.
The Lions also think that. They said Jared Goff is our quarterback, and it's not until somebody else comes along, Jared Goff is our quarterback. That's what they came out and said. So
that's confidence.
Vote of confidence, and that's what you need in this stretch run right now. There's no reason why he should feel like he's playing for his job. He's playing the best football of his career. He said so. And look, he doesn't give me the vibe where he's going to speak out of pocket. I feel like he really does believe that he's playing the best football of his career.
I believe so too.
And teams will be lining up. We mentioned a couple of them, the Saints, maybe even the Jets, to get Jared Goff over in town if they do let him go in Detroit. So I'm all in on Jameson Williams still. I haven't seen anything out of him to make me say, hey, I don't know about this guy. He did have a drop. It's a little alarming, 3 targets. But I think we're going to get used to this. Ready?
He might have the hips.
He might have a drop or 2, but
it's brand new.
If you give me this at a Jameson Williams in the Mojo Market, you give me 3 targets. For every one of those targets,
He gets 40 yards at a tug.
He gets 40 yards, a touchdown, and then a drop. I'm okay with it.
Nah, 1,000%. I'm signing up for that.
He will end up with like 40 drops on the year if that's the case.
He'll
so
set
that's not
records,
really what we're looking
okay.
for. But, Jameson Williams, he's a big play waiting to happen. That's all I'll say about that.
Who's not a big play waiting to happen? Anybody that's on the Commanders right now? No. Johan Dotson, obviously, is somebody that we want to talk about because this is one of those, for me, it's a red flag when you're talking about investing in a guy, is the quarterback situation. Right now, we saw Carson Wentz. We also saw the dismissal of Carson Wentz, and now we're seeing Tyler Heineke, and I really like that kid. I mean, for crying out loud, they put out the season ticket promo at Washington's Field with Heineke as the poster boy. So clearly, they like this kid. If they're in position to grab a quarterback next year, they might, or they actually have Sam Howell just kind of sitting there in the wings, like, "Hey, remember me?" But as far as Dotson is concerned, 35 targets, 19 catches, 233 yards. Here's the big thing. Out of the first 4 guys we just listed, Dotson has more touchdowns than all of those guys. He's got 5 on the year. The Washington Commanders are setting themselves up for a potential playoff berth. They have to keep winning games. They got a big one this week against New York. Are you in on a Dotson going forward?
No.
Oh, okay. We're finally saying no to somebody.
not like Johan Dotson. I'm a Penn State fan, so he has a soft spot with me. I definitely am a big Johan Dotson fan. Just no pass catchers besides Scary Terry over in Washington is worth it for me. I do like all three of the guys. I like what they have.
Curtis Samuel's fun to watch.
They're good, but I just don't like them in the Mojo Market. Look, I'm going to explain why here with Johan Dotson. I think there's one person on planet Earth that likes Carson Wentz playing quarterback, and that's Johan Dotson. Because when Carson Wentz was playing quarterback, Johan Dotson was getting every single red zone target in the world. All right, so he has 3 games after his injury where he had a combined. So he got hurt. He missed 5. Right, he had a good start to his career, gets hurt, misses 5 games. In the 3 games back from his injury, he has a total combined targets 4. Right. So 4 total targets. And then he did have 9 last week. So it's like, hey, what's going on with the Johan Dotson usage? Honestly, if you look over the course of the season, it's 4 games out of 7 that he's played in the top 25, but the other 3, completely non-existent. Like not even in the top 80. Boomer bust, Johan Dotson.
Yeah.
For a guy that doesn't have the big playability, I don't think he's the right type of boomer bust guy. Like a Christian Watson, which we'll get to, boomer bust. That's like the type of guy where it's like he might get 3 targets, but they're not in the red zone and they still might go for a touchdown. Jahan Dotson needs to be inside the 20. He doesn't have any touchdowns that are long.
I agree with that.
So
I wholeheartedly agree.
I think there's going to be some regression as far as touchdowns go, even though there might be some positive regression with the targets going into next year.
Okay. Somebody you might want to tread lightly on, because once upon a time you said everybody just short Treylon Burks. He's been a guy with asthma, can't hack it, no conditioning, stinks at football. And then, of course, Thursday night against the Packers a couple weeks back, about a month back at this point, he catches the first ball, and I'm just like, do I text? I'm not going to text him. You know what I mean? I'll wait for the morning.
I could have handled it.
Treylon Burks, 37 targets, 25 catches, 359 yards, and a touchdown. Now, again, Tannehill has been his quarterback. And again, Malik Willis has seen some field. But to me, that's another question mark going forward, is the quarterback position in Tennessee, which leads me to believe now there will be opportunity in the playoffs. They're not going to lose that division. They're going to get a playoff game, a home playoff game at that. I'm not in on any pass catchers over in Tennessee. They're a run-first team. That team runs through Derrick Henry, who, by the way, again, if you're just joining us for the first time, Derrick Henry is your top dog running back on the Mojo Market. And that just goes to show you what the Tennessee Titans are all about. This dude's still a truck. This truck here in Treylon Burks, sometimes it breaks down and sometimes he doesn't show up. So where are you on Burks at this point heading into the playoffs?
I'm back to where I was, Dave.
Uh-oh.
All right, look.
That means get in on him right now. Multipliers this week. Treylon Burks goes off.
No, he doesn't. I don't even know Treylon Burks is fully healthy. He had a concussion, and it was he got dealt with in that game 2 weeks ago. So
Philly,
I'm not sure.
Philly laid the wood on
I'm not
him,
sure how his health is at the moment.
God, I hope he doesn't turn into AB.
Well,
like that. You know
I mean, AB went through a little bit more than what that one hit. But yes, it wasn't that bad. I don't think. But I think Treylon Burks' usage in that offense, you were very right. They're a run-first team. I have a hard time thinking that Treylon Burks is going to pan out to be what they expected him to, which is an A.J. Brown type. I know it's early, and I'm not going to sit here and say it's over for him, but to the points that I made a couple weeks back or maybe a month and a half back, I still think he doesn't have the work ethic to cut it in the NFL when we're looking at the talent at this position. And I know that that's something where I don't know. I'm just saying based off of a couple social media videos that I've seen, but I haven't seen many disputes to come out and say, hey, you guys are crazy or you're.
No teammates are going to bat.
No teammates are going to bat, that this guy's a hard worker. I think that there's going to be a shred of, saying, look, people looking over at him and be like, this dude don't even work hard at all. I don't know. That's just
not
me.
a recipe for anybody I want to invest my money in.
25 catches on the season. I feel like 20 of them were against the Packers. So, what's he been doing otherwise?
We talked about this guy briefly for a second before, but now George Pickens is really starting to come on as a receiver in Pittsburgh. Deontay Johnson has not seen the end zone. George Pickens has seen it twice. 64 targets, 40 catches, 590 yards, and again, 2 touchdowns. George Pickens is turning out to be somewhat of a playmaker here. And I think that the offense going forward under a Kenny Pickett and under a resurging next year Najee Harris, you would assume they're not just going to, give up on a guy like that. And you got Pat Freiermuth underneath. And Deontay Johnson's eating up a lot of yards. But George Pickens, I think, is in a good spot. A real good spot.
I do as well. So I just went through all the guys that we've talked about, and I even looked ahead a little bit, right? So out of all these rookie receivers, we have 10 that we're talking about today, right? Garrett Wilson, question marks surrounding the quarterback position. Chris Olave, question marks surrounding the quarterback position. Drake London, we expect that Desmond Ridder is at least their plan going forward, but he was still not picked too high. And there's not a huge investment in terms of draft capital spent there. So they have still somewhat of a clouded quarterback situation until they find out what's going on with Ridder. Jameson Williams, we just talked that Goff is their quarterback, but prior to 2 weeks ago, nobody knew what was happening with Jared Goff, right? Johan Dotson, we talked about the Commanders, Wentz, gone. Heineke, season ticket promo, still gone. Watch. Traylon Burks, we just talked Malik Willis, Ryan Tannehill. Then you get to George Pickens, and it's like, okay, they at least have some solidarity to their quarterback spot because he's a first-round pick, drafted this year, room to grow together, and George Pickens is NFL young boy. So for that reason and that reason alone, you're going to get a... What he manages to do is that when he does something well, the entire country knows about it. The entire world knows about it. So I think there's a little bit of value in that.
There is
in the Mojo market when you have the pulse of the people the way George Pickens does.
Cheap too, $10. Get in on him. $10.89 for George right now.
I'm looking at it outside of Alec Pierce. He leads the rookie receivers in yards per catch. Right?
He does. I'm seeing a 15.9 there. That's Pierce. I'm sorry. 14.8.
From a Pittsburgh offense that...
He's tied with Olave.
The Pittsburgh Steelers offense, where their wide receiver one last year was Deontay Johnson, and he averaged 8 yards a catch. So for this offense, which Najee Harris completely busted this year, even Deontay Johnson completely busted this year.
They did lose Juju, so like that was a thing.
Fair, but...
They traded away Claypool.
But Juju was hurt most of last year.
Yeah, right? So but I'm saying Claypool was a guy that they kind of believed in, and all of a sudden they get a
fair. I think George Pickens takes over for Claypool because Claypool drafted his replacement. When Claypool went up and said, George Pickens, blah, blah, blah.
They get that big chest bump at the podium, and you're like, man, I'm going to take
the point that I'm making is that I think the most telling stat about what's going to happen in George Pickens' career is a big play waiting to happen, 15 yards per catch on a team that doesn't get a yard per play at this point.
Yeah.
And he's getting 15 per catch. I would get him involved more if I was Pittsburgh.
A couple more guys to go over. One close and near and dear to your heart. You were surprised that for the year, Christian Watson is down for the year for the Packers. 41 targets. He has 25 receptions. The biggest drop of his career was play 1 of week 1. 401 yards. But, dude, the guy has found the end zone pretty much every week since he started this little tear. He's got 7 touchdowns. Christian Watson, now again, you got to talk about the quarterback situation, okay? Right now, he's getting one of the better throwers. To me, a healthy Aaron Rodgers was the best thrower of the football I've ever seen. Now is banged up, the thumb, the shoulder, the head, everything's banged up on Rodgers. But now going forward, if you're going to invest in him, clearly they're not going to be a playoff team this year. But next year, Jordan Love is kind of breathing down the neck. And I'm not saying he's going to replace Rodgers. There's a lot of money involved over there.
There's so many issues in Green Bay right now surrounding that situation.
It's gonna, and you know what? It was bound to happen because you've done this before. You've been down this. This isn't your first quarterback rodeo. Okay.
A reporter came out and said that if Jordan Love's not starting next year, and he spoke to Jordan Love, and judging by how the convo went, that Jordan Love, if he doesn't start next year, he's going to want a trade.
Really?
Yeah, he's going to demand a trade. This is what Tyler Dunn said. This is not quoted by Jordan Love, and it's just like that's the feeling he got in the conversation. I'm sure
that was actually the reporter. He was calling me.
That's
he's
crazy.
He's like, no, I didn't say that.
Don't misquote me. But all that aside, if you want to sit here and say, okay, there could be potentially Jordan Love at quarterback next year for the Packers, so does that make Christian Watson's stock go down a little bit? Quite possibly, but you know he did have a 65-yard touchdown catch when Jordan Love came in the game.
Listen, I'm in on Christian Watson. Man.
I saw Christian Watson take an end around. And it looked like
a track meet.
Yeah, like there's nobody.
He's got skills.
He's 6'4". I think there's a little bit of an issue with catching the football, which we've talked about.
That might alter some things when you're a receiver. But I ultimately, if it's Rodgers, if it's Love, that offense.
So let's think about if this guy's season didn't start off with his very first play from scrimmage being a 75-yard touchdown that he dropped.
They would think he'd be a phenom at this point.
At this point, right now, he already is a phenom. He's down for the season. Get in on him now because this guy is the real deal. 6'4", and he's got speed like that. He's going to be a hard guy to deal with. I don't care same thing, if he drops 1 out of every 3. If they go for touchdowns, which I think he has like 20 catches. He's got 8 touchdowns.
We're not going to bring him up, the other one, but Romeo Doubs also might be a guy you might want to invest in.
I was going to bring him up. when we brought up Wanda Robinson.
Oh, okay. Well, Alec Pierce right now is the next guy. He was Chris's guy for a little while. We were riding highest. You're still in on him. Alec Pierce is in a bad offense right now. The Colts have just struggled mightily about in every way you can actually struggle. 60 targets, 32 catches, 510 yards, 2 touchdowns for Alec Pierce, the rookie. He's dealt with a very slow statue of a quarterback in Matt Ryan. Then they went to Ellinger for a minute. Now you're back in Matt Ryan. It seems like the Colts are going to definitely address the quarterback position next year, and that can only benefit guys like him and Pittman, I would assume, right? A better quarterback play going forward is going to benefit this guy's future value, and right now you can get him very, very cheap, and on top of that, there's a 3-time multiplier on an Alec Pierce. Are you still in on your boy?
Of course. And he's back up for the season, by the way, as we could all see right now. He's back in the green, so back in the good graces of the people over here at the Mojo Market.
I'm with it.
But yeah, he's the guy that leads the league out of the rookies in yards per catch. So who would have thought Alec Pierce comes along? We're expecting this guy to be a possession guy, and he's leading the league out of rookie receivers in yards per catch. I'm excited about him going forward. Tough season for a guy to be in the number 2 spot. Michael Pittman was supposed to be a wide receiver 1. He's not even a wide receiver 40 at this point this season. You could blame a lot of it on the quarterback play. You could blame a lot of it on the coaching.
The offensive line. Saturday running things over there.
The offensive line. It was a lost season for the Colts this year, but Alec Pierce probably learned a lot in this offense, and I fully expect him for a guy that played on an offense as bad as they were. There was never one time where we were looking at Alec Pierce as being the problem. Nobody was like, maybe him being a rookie, being in such a valuable spot for this team was a detriment to them. But when I'm looking at it, not really. I mean, they probably airmailed half those passes. I don't think he had many drops out of the 28 misses. So like the Colts offense just doesn't work if I'm looking at that. 60 targets, 32 catches, that's just not working.
There was a lot of hype for a Wanda Robinson for about a minute and a half. 31 targets, 23 catches, 227 and a touchdown. They trade away Kadarius Toney. Kenny Galladay's a mystery, right? The only guy that really developed throughout the course of the year. They lost Sterling Shepard again, and then it was Darius Slayton coming on. Wanda Robinson going forward, because clearly, I don't even know. I mean, is he hurt? Wandel's hurt? Yeah, he lost for a year. So it's really about next year for this guy. Do you think he can take over a predominant role in New York? Kenny Galladay, all signs point to goodbye, right? Shepard going to be hobbled to start. So is this guy. So are the Giants receivers just something to avoid right now? It just seems like it's just not a good situation.
Yeah, I feel like the Giants have 13 of these guys. Shepard.
They're all the
same type of player. Even Hodgins came in this week and had a decent game. All things considered, the Giants.
Richie James, I think, was out there doing anything.
Yeah, so there's a plethora of slot receivers seemingly on the Giants roster, but I don't know. It doesn't really until I find out what's happening at the quarterback spot, and even still, I mean, the third option. Potentially even 4th if Saquon's considered an option in the passing game. Potentially 4th, 5th option on a Giants team.
It might be a very, very different looking Giants team next year. After another offseason with this coaching regime and GM front office, they're going to shake some stuff up.
If you want a bargain basement guy to buy in on, I wouldn't buy in on a Wanda Robinson. I would definitely buy in on a Romeo Doubs.
So now you want 2 Packers in your portfolio.
100%. I mean, don't we all have 2 Packers in our portfolio already? I mean, I have Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson in my portfolio. I think that there's room for growth there. The value for Romeo Doubs, I think, is insane. Okay. What we saw was he was their number 1 option for the first 6 weeks of the season until he got hurt. Next year, you have Watson and Doubs, and then I don't know how Lazard fits in. I think it's a nice little thing that they're building over in Green Bay.
Yeah, I agree. All right, listen. To follow us on the day-to-day at Mojo, do that. Follow us right now on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Mojo. Join the Discord. You got to do that, okay? Join the Discord because it's a conversation that just keeps on going, right? And all day, every day, people are sharing their portfolios. You'll find us some stock tips, all this stuff, all on the Discord. Go join that right now. We highly recommend it. We're involved in it. We chime in from time to time. I would like to get more involved in it because, I need the advice too, right? We are the experts here, all right? We are the flagship, but I want to say that you can always use some extra help. So Mojo, the Discord, could do that. And do it all, please. Do it all responsibly. So for Dave Sturchio, Chris Gueci, this has been another episode of the Mojo Market Report. Back here tomorrow for the Seattle Seahawks 49er game to preview. There's a lot of guys in there that I'm very, very interested in. Are we going to go in on Brock Purdy again? Are we going to go in on Geno Smith? Kenny Walker, is he back? A lot to discuss as far as that game is concerned. And, of course, we're going to break down, speaking of Kenny Walker, same thing we've been doing the last couple of days.
Some rookie running backs.
Get you in the know about the rookie running backs to invest in. So for that, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.